A single plant has consumed entire riverbanks, smothered wetlands, and outpaced every eradication effort thrown at it. In 2023, California's Department of Water Resources reported spending over $70 million attempting to control one species along a single watershed. That plant is Arundo Donax, giant reed, and it burns at temperatures hot enough to melt aluminum, yet returns from its roots within weeks of the most catastrophic wildfire. A 2004 study in the journal Weed Technology documented regrowth rates exceeding 10 centimeters per day under optimal conditions, faster than almost any terrestrial plant on Earth. It arrived not as an invader, but as a gift. Ancient civilizations planted it deliberately, harvested it reverently, and built entire industries around its hollow cane. The Romans used it for pan flutes. The Egyptians shaped it into writing instruments. Today, America spends decades and fortunes trying to undo what ancient engineers spent centuries perfecting. This is not a story about a weed. It is a story about a misunderstood civilization tool dropped into the wrong century. And the most unsettling chapter of this story involves what this plant does underground. A truth that changes everything about how eradication is even attempted. Long before plastic, steel, or fiberglass, Arundo Donax was the engineered material of the ancient world. The oldest surviving musical instruments, Egyptian flutes dated to 4000 BCE, were crafted from its cane. Ancient Greek and Roman engineers used giant reed as scaffolding, roof thatching, and water conduit. Persian and Moorish architects incorporated it into wall construction across the Mediterranean basin. The instrument makers of Renaissance Europe had a name for the finest reed blanks: Arundo. To this day, every professional clarinet, oboe, and saxophone reed in the world is cut from this plant. The global musical instrument reed industry, worth hundreds of millions annually, depends entirely on Arundo Donax grown in the Var region of southern France. It is simultaneously the most hated plant in California and the most indispensable raw material in orchestral music. No other species occupies that paradox. The same cane that chokes the Santa Ana River feeds the reeds of Carnegie Hall. Civilizations did not stumble upon this plant accidentally. They selected it, cultivated it, and passed knowledge of its uses across millennia. The question is not why they valued it. The question is why we forgot. Understanding why Arundo Donax cannot be simply pulled out requires understanding what it does beneath the surface. The plant produces a dense interconnected mat of rhizomes, horizontal underground stems that can penetrate 2 meters into the soil. A single established stand can contain rhizome networks spanning hundreds of square meters, storing massive energy reserves. When the above-ground cane is cut, burned, or sprayed, those reserves activate immediately. The plant does not die, it reassembles. Giant reed reproduces almost exclusively through vegetative fragmentation, not seeds. A rhizome fragment the size of a thumb, carried downstream during a flood, can establish a new colony within a single growing season. This is the biological trap that has defeated every eradication program not designed around rhizome exhaustion. The plant evolved in the floodplains of Central and South Asia, where periodic violent flooding selected for exactly this survival strategy. Cut it, and it grows back. Burn it, and the fire spreads further into adjacent dry vegetation while the rhizomes survive underground. California fire officials have documented Arundo stands burning at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, roughly the temperature of a pottery kiln. 3 weeks later, new shoots emerge from the same scorched ground. Nature designed this plant to outlast catastrophe. Human schedules were never part of the calculation. Arundo Donax is not merely a tough plant. It is one of the most productive biomass generators ever studied. Research published in Global Change Biology measured Arundo yields of up to 35 to 38 dry tons per hectare per year in Mediterranean climates. For comparison, switchgrass, the flagship American bioenergy crop, averages 5 to 11 dry tons per hectare annually. Giant reed produces 3 to 4 times more combustible biomass than its closest biofuel competitor, on marginal land, without irrigation once established. The European Union funded significant research into Arundo as a dedicated energy crop throughout the 2000s. Studies confirmed its calorific value at approximately 17 to 18 megajoules per kilogram, comparable to low-grade coal. It burns like coal. It grows like grass. It requires almost no inputs once established. This combination makes it simultaneously a wildfire catastrophe in invaded riparian zones and a theoretical energy revolution on degraded agricultural land. The same biological traits that make eradication nearly impossible make cultivation for energy purposes extraordinarily efficient. European agronomists have proposed managed Arundo plantations as a carbon-neutral alternative to fossil fuel combustion. The plant that California pays millions to destroy could, under different management in different geography, power entire towns. The distinction between pest and resource was never botanical. It was always about location. In the riparian zones of the American Southwest, Arundo Donax does not merely compete with native plants. It reorganizes entire ecosystems. A mature Arundo stand transpires enormous volumes of water directly into the atmosphere, a serious concern in drought-stressed river systems. Research from the University of California estimated that Arundo uses 2 to 3 times more water per unit area than the native willow and cottonwood communities it displaces. Along the Rio Grande, giant reed has transformed broad, biodiverse floodplain corridors into dense monocultures of hollow cane, stretching for miles. The native riparian woodland, habitat for the endangered southwestern willow flycatcher, has been compressed to isolated fragments. Arundo's dense canopy eliminates the understory light that native seedlings require to establish. Its litter chemistry alters soil microbiology, discouraging the germination of species adapted to the original environment. It does not simply occupy space, it rewrites the rules of the space it occupies. This ecological dominance is the result of a fundamental mismatch. Arundo arrived with no native herbivores, no fungal pathogens, and no evolutionary competitors in North America. In its native Asian range, hundreds of insect species and fungal organisms constrain its spread naturally. On this continent, it encountered a biological vacuum and filled it completely. The lesson of giant reed in the American West is not about the evil of any plant. It is about the consequences of moving organisms beyond the boundaries of their ecological history. Controlling Arundo Donax in invaded watersheds has become one of the most expensive botanical challenges in American conservation history. Effective programs combine initial cutting with targeted herbicide application to exposed cut surfaces, a method called cut stump treatment. But rhizome masses buried deep in riverbanks resist even repeated treatment, requiring multi-year follow-up monitoring to prevent resurgence. The Nature Conservancy's work along the Rio Grande required over a decade of sustained effort to achieve meaningful reductions in dense stands. Biological control offers a potential long-term solution. Researchers have tested a specialist armored scale insect, Rhizaspidiotus donacis, as a natural enemy of giant reed. This insect, native to the Mediterranean region where Arundo evolved, feeds specifically on the plant's vascular tissue without attacking native species. Permits for its limited release in the United States were approved following years of host specificity testing. But biological control operates on ecological timescales, years and decades, not seasons. Meanwhile, flood events continuously redistribute rhizome fragments downstream, reopening cleared areas faster than restoration crews can follow. The eradication paradox is this: the faster water moves through a watershed, the faster Arundo moves with it. Engineers designed flood control channels to move water quickly. Those same channels became highways for giant reed dispersal. Infrastructure built to manage one problem inadvertently accelerated another. The river system and the plant adapted to each other faster than management plans could respond. While land managers wage war against Arundo in the American West, material scientists and designers in Europe are rediscovering what ancient builders always knew. Giant reed has a tensile strength-to-weight ratio comparable to softwood timber, with significantly faster growth to harvestable size. Architectural research published by institutions including the Barcelona School of Architecture has explored Arundo as a structural building material for low-cost, sustainable construction. In rural communities across southern Europe and North Africa, traditional Arundo construction never disappeared. It simply was not documented by industrial-era architects. Compressed Arundo panels have been tested as insulation board, showing thermal performance competitive with conventional mineral wool products. Paper manufacturers in China and India have used Arundo Donax as a pulp fiber source for over a century, valued for its long fiber length and rapid renewability. The fashion industry has explored Arundo-derived cellulose fiber as an alternative to cotton in sustainable textile production. Several European startups now produce commercial insulation, particle board, and acoustic panels from managed Arundo harvests. In each application, the same biology that terrifies conservation managers, extreme growth rate, high biomass density, structural fiber strength, becomes a competitive advantage. The plant did not change its properties based on which continent it stands on. Human perception changed, and with it, the plant's economic and ecological story transformed entirely. Ancient builders did not call it a weed. They called it material. Arundo Donax does not ask permission. It does not adapt to human schedules or budget cycles. It simply executes the biological directives encoded across millions of years of evolutionary pressure. The $70 million figure attached to California's eradication efforts represents something larger than a line item in a water management budget. It represents the cost of ecological misplacement, of moving a specialized organism into a system with no biological memory of its presence. And it represents the cost of forgetting. Ancient Mediterranean civilizations maintained Arundo as a managed crop for thousands of years without triggering the ecological collapse now unfolding along American waterways. The difference was not the plant. The difference was the relationship between the plant and its environment. Every species carries embedded knowledge about the system it evolved within. Remove it from that system, and it becomes a problem. Keep it within that system, and it becomes a resource. This distinction, ecological placement versus ecological displacement, is the central lesson of Arundo Donax. The same cane that builds concert hall instruments, fuels European biomass facilities, and once roofed Mediterranean villages is classified as a noxious weed 2 continents away. Geography did not change the plant. Geography changed the consequences. What grows freely is not always freely without cost.